You are 2 years old. You are running, or what passes for running when you're 2, which is really more of a controlled fall forward, across a backyard somewhere. The grass is longer than your knees. The sun is doing that thick summer thing where everything smells like heat. And then a dog, enormous as far as you're concerned, basically a horse, comes charging around the corner and knocks you flat. You hit the ground hard. You cry. Someone picks you up, and then nothing. That moment happened. Your neurons fired. Your heart hammered. You laid there on the grass with a dirty face and the total conviction that life was over. And your brain recorded 0 of it. You've lived through thousands of moments like this one. Pure terror, pure laughter, pure confusion, pure wonder. In the first 2, 3, 4 years of your life. And you remember almost none of them. Not because they didn't happen, not because they didn't matter, but because your brain reached in, gathered all of it up, and quietly deleted it. And here's the thing nobody tells you. It didn't do that by accident. It did it on purpose. And the reason why is stranger than you're expecting. Now, before we go any further, understand what that actually means. Those first 2 to 4 years were not a quiet warm-up period. They were the most intense, compressed learning experience your brain will ever undergo. You went from being unable to hold your own head up to walking, talking, reading faces, understanding cause and effect, building a working model of how the physical world operates, all in a few years. Neuroscientists will tell you that no subsequent period of learning in your entire life even comes close. Not school, not your 20s, not anything. And you remember essentially none of it. Not your first steps, not the first time you discovered that hiding behind the couch makes adults do increasingly panicked things. Not the face of whoever used to sing you to sleep. Not the specific thing you were terrified of at 18 months that you screamed about for 3 weeks straight. Gone. All of it. Think about that for a second. The most formative period of your entire life, the period that literally constructed the architecture of your adult brain, has been completely erased from your conscious access. Psychologists call this childhood amnesia. And for a long time, the explanation seemed obvious. Babies are simply too undeveloped to form real memories. The hardware isn't there. It's like asking a phone with no storage to save a video. It just can't. But here's what most people don't realize. That explanation is wrong. Completely, measurably, demonstrably wrong. And the real answer goes so much deeper. And honestly, so much weirder than anyone expected. Let's start from the very beginning. Here's where the whole babies can't make memories theory falls apart. In the 1980s, a psychologist named Carolyn Rovey Collier did something beautifully strange. She tied a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. Kick the leg, the mobile moves. Babies figured this out within minutes, delighted, obsessively kicking, running their tiny private experiment. Then she came back 2 weeks later, rigged the ribbon back up, and the baby immediately started kicking. A 2-month-old, remembering a specific physical routine from 2 weeks ago. Later experiments pushed this further. Infants as young as 6 months could retain memories of events for up to 24 hours. Toddlers around 2 years old could recall complex sequences, in order, for up to a year. The memories are going in. The hardware is working. Your infant self was absolutely recording everything. So why can you not access any of it? Here's where it gets interesting. The part of your brain most responsible for converting experiences into long-term memories, the hippocampus, is not finished when you're born. It is under active construction for the first several years of your life. And here's the problem with building something while you're using it. The renovation causes chaos with the existing files. During early childhood, your hippocampus is generating new neurons at a ferocious rate. This process is called neurogenesis. And here's what most people underestimate about it. Those new neurons don't just get added on top of what's already there. They push into existing circuits. They rewire connections. They make room for themselves. And in doing so, they overwrite old memories. Picture a filing system where someone is constantly dumping in new folders, thousands of them, every single week. Older folders get buried, misfiled, written over. Not because the information wasn't important. Because the system was growing so fast, it never had a stable place to put the old files permanently. Your infant memories weren't corrupted. They were overwritten by the very process that was making you smarter. Researchers proved this in baby mice, whose hippocampal neurogenesis follows a strikingly similar trajectory to ours. They formed memories in the young mice, confirmed the memories were there, then triggered heavy neurogenesis, and watched those memories disappear. Then they went the other direction, artificially slowed neurogenesis in adult mice down to infant levels, and the adults started exhibiting infant-style amnesia. The mice essentially had a dial. Turn up neurogenesis, forget more. Turn it down, remember more. The deletion is a direct consequence of the growth. The faster your brain was building itself, the more aggressively it was erasing its own early recordings. But here's where it gets really interesting, because neurogenesis alone doesn't fully explain the gap. There's a second problem running in parallel. You didn't have a self to attach the memories to yet. Episodic memory, the kind where you remember you doing something from your own first-person perspective, requires what psychologists call autobiographical self-awareness. The sense that there is a continuous me moving through time. That past me and present me are the same person. That what happened to me yesterday is part of my story. Babies don't have that yet. They have experience, they have sensation, they have emotion, enormous amounts of emotion. But the internal narrator, the voice that files things under my life, is still being assembled. Language plays a massive role in this assembly. We encode memories partly through a kind of scaffolding built from language. Not exact words, but concepts, categories, the structures that let us tag an experience as ours and place it in sequence with other experiences. Before you had language, you were living in raw sensation. And when language arrived and reorganized your brain, which it does, structurally, measurably, it couldn't reach back and retroactively tag the pre-language files. They were written in a format the new operating system simply can't open. Most people think of this as a failure. But consider the alternative for a moment. A child carrying full, conscious, narrative access to every terrifying early experience. Every medical procedure, every night terror, every moment of helplessness and confusion, stored in perfect detail, tagged with full adult emotional context, permanently accessible. Your brain looked at that option and said, hard pass. And that brings us to the part that flips this from tragedy to something almost elegant. The forgetting is adaptive. It has to happen for the adult brain to work. What your brain was actually optimizing for in those first few years wasn't autobiography. It was pattern extraction. Rules, general lessons. How does the world work? Which faces are safe? What sounds mean danger? What gets rewarded? The specific episodic footage of each individual moment is almost beside the point. What matters are the underlying principles that footage is used to generate. And once those principles are extracted and baked into your personality, your reflexes, your emotional defaults, the raw footage becomes redundant. Storing it at high resolution costs enormous energy and occupies real estate the developing brain needs for the next phase of construction. There's something else, too. If you retained detailed conscious access to your infant memories, you might not be able to update them. You'd be dragging toddler-level context into an adult brain, And toddler logic would keep contaminating your adult reasoning. The reset gives the system a clean slate to run more sophisticated models of the world, while still retaining the deep lessons extracted from the early ones. Your brain didn't fail to keep those memories. It kept exactly what it needed. Then it let go of the rest. Here's the wild part, though. The emotional core of those early years, the pieces that shaped you most fundamentally, they weren't fully deleted. They were just moved somewhere you can't reach consciously. The amygdala, your brain's threat and emotion processor, matures much earlier than the hippocampus. And the amygdala doesn't store stories. It stores feelings, gut-level responses, automatic associations between things and their emotional weight. So the specific memory of the dog that knocked you flat? Gone. But the low, automatic wariness you feel around large dogs you don't know? Still there. Stored not as a narrative memory, but as a reflex. A body-level conclusion drawn from an event your conscious mind has no access to. Psychologists call these implicit memories, and they are running constantly in the background of your adult life. The comfort food that hits different for no obvious reason? Early association. The type of person you instinctively trust before they've said 10 words? Face-reading pattern extraction from years of practice you can't consciously recall. The fears that have been with you for as long as you can remember, with no origin story you can point to. Your infant self left notes. You just can't read them directly. You can only feel them, in the way certain things make you feel safe, or wrong, or like leaving a room, before your conscious brain has even caught up. Now, here's the part that genuinely disturbs people when they sit with it. You almost certainly have early memories you're confident are real. A birthday party, a beach, a family pet who died before you were 5. And you'd swear you can picture it, the light, the faces, maybe the feeling of being there. What the research consistently finds is that most of what we call our earliest memories are not memories at all. They are reconstructions. Your brain, confronted with a gap in its autobiographical record, does what it always does with gaps. It fills them in. It takes the stories adults told you, the photographs you've seen, the family mythology you grew up inside, and it builds something that feels indistinguishable from a lived memory. Specific, warm, yours. But it is a story you inherited, not a moment you stored. You don't actually remember your 3rd birthday party. You remember being told about it, repeatedly, probably with photographic evidence on a refrigerator somewhere for years. Your brain heard the story often enough that it quietly promoted it, from thing I was told happened to thing I remember. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. You cannot tell the difference. From the inside, the false memory and the real one feel identical. The confidence you have about your earliest recollection is not evidence that the recollection is accurate. Your autobiographical story begins with a chapter your brain wrote from second-hand sources, and you've been treating it as primary for your entire life. So what does any of this mean for who you are right now? It means the years that shaped you most are also the years you have the least direct access to. The comfort you take in certain sounds, the faces you trust, the fears that live in your chest before your brain catches up, the way certain rooms feel wrong before you can name why, the specific pitch of voice that makes your shoulders drop without you deciding to relax. All of that was built in the years you can't remember. But you didn't lose those years. They're in you. They're just filed somewhere you can't reach with conscious memory, only with attention to your reflexes, your gut, your body's automatic answers to the world. The next time you feel something you can't explain, a warmth for a place you've never knowingly been, comfort from a smell you can't identify, a fear with no story attached to it. It might have a story. You just can't read it. It was written before you had the language to write in. And the next time you see a baby experiencing something enormous, pure terror, pure delight, total bewilderment at the mystery of existing, know that it's real, completely real. As vivid and fully felt as anything you've experienced today. They are in there, recording, learning, building the deep architecture of who they'll become. They just won't remember it, and neither did you. That's not a failure, that's how you got here. Your brain spent those years building you, not building a record of the construction. And based on available evidence, it did fine work.